Not all horror lives in fiction. The real horror stories that actually walked among us are far more terrifying than anything Hollywood could dream up. What if I told you that the most nightmarish chapters of human history weren't invented? They were lived, they were suffered, and they're documented. Today, we're exploring 3 real horror stories that challenge everything you thought you knew about fear. First, the poltergeist that wasn't. In 1817, a farmhouse in Kentucky became the center of an inexplicable nightmare. The Livingston family reported phenomena so violent, so relentless, that skeptics from across the nation arrived to witness the impossible. Objects flew with no visible force. Invisible hands struck family members. Sounds echoed through walls, footsteps, whispers, screams. But here's the twist in this real horror story. When investigators arrived, they discovered something darker than any supernatural entity. A jilted suitor had orchestrated elaborate pranks to terrorize the family. But by then, the psychological damage was irreversible. One family member never recovered. They lived the rest of their life in an asylum, convinced the supernatural was real. The real horror. Sometimes the cruelest terror is human deception masked as the impossible. Next, we have the smiling killer. Real horror stories often wear a human face. Like Pedro Rodrigues Filho, for 2 decades, this man walked freely through São Paulo, Brazil. Neighbors knew him as polite, reserved, almost ... kind. What they didn't know, he'd claimed over 100 lives. The Brazilian newspapers gave him a name. They called him the Smiling Killer. And not because he smiled during his crimes, but because he smiled afterward, always. He confessed to murdering his own father at age 14. Then he never stopped. The chilling part? He wasn't caught because of investigators. He was caught because, after decades of violence, he decided to turn himself in, almost as if the mask had finally cracked. When authorities asked him why he finally confessed, his response was hollow. I wanted the world to know what I was capable of. The world didn't create his evil. He created it himself. And that's far more terrifying than any monster story ever told. And finally, the Lost Colony of Roanoke. North Carolina, 1590. A colony of 117 settlers vanishes without a trace. No bodies, no struggle, no explanation. The only clue: a single word carved into a tree: Croatoan. For over 400 years, historians have debated what happened. Did they assimilate with the Croatoan tribe? Were they slaughtered? Did they starve? But the real horror of this real horror story isn't the mystery itself. It's what we've discovered about the conditions they endured. Archaeological evidence reveals starvation, disease, desperation beyond imagination. The colonists weren't mysterious victims of fate. They were human beings abandoned in a hostile new world, watching their families slowly die, knowing rescue might never come. Imagine that terror, that slow, inexorable descent into oblivion, not from monsters, from circumstance. The Lost Colony of Roanoke wasn't a mystery to solve. It was a tragedy to remember. People who suffered, struggled, and ultimately were forgotten by history. Until now. Real horror stories don't need special effects. They don't need jump scares. They need only truth. And the truth. Human experience, suffering, loss, deception, desperation is the most terrifying narrative of all. What's the most disturbing real horror story you've encountered? Let us know in the comments below. We are the Narrative Bloom, where history becomes haunting.